I'm the kind of neurotic who can't just enjoy things. If this YouTube channel is any indicator, I have to categorize and organize my interests. Take my favorite shows. I've got my sitcoms, my prestige dramas, my cartoons, my anime, my docu-series, corny superhero shows, and then there's Nathan For You. Just Nathan For You. What on earth is Nathan For You? A sketch show, a sitcom, a mockumentary, a documentary, a prank show? It is maybe the most lightning in a bottle thing I've ever seen. The premise of Nathan For You follows Nathan Fielder, who acts as a consultant for struggling businesses and offers his unique brand of creativity. I think his ideas speak for themselves, whether he's revitalizing a frozen yogurt shop with poo flavor, selling alcohol to minors only to lock it in a safe so they can't legally consume it after the transaction, and selling TVs at insanely low prices, trapped behind a live alligator. Nathan For You annihilates me as a lampoon of absurd marketing we see every day, from the perspective of the character creating these endeavors and his vulnerable point of view. The thing about Nathan For You is that while Nathan's intentions and ideas are planned, the reactions he gets from his clients and what plays out is real. Nathan is essentially playing a fictionalized version of himself, carrying out his harebrained schemes and recording how people take it in. I was not aware of this the first time I watched this show, and judging by the general bewilderment I've observed in others when looking into the topic, I'm not the only person to question the reality of it. I thought the whole thing was scripted as just good comedy, but any doubt is expunged when you look at the cultural impact Nathan's ideas have had on these very real establishments, which isn't enormous, but all things considered is noteworthy in of itself for being remotely considerable. When Nathan had the idea to merge an advertised workout regimen with a moving service, he hired a performer to go on a news show to market the service, an interview that 6 years later is still hosted on KCWI's YouTube channel, as if the revelation that this was all a gag never occurred, while the tie-in book to the workout briefly made the bestseller list on Amazon. The most famous exploit begotten by Nathan's ideas was Dumb Starbucks, which Nathan created around the notion that one could use Starbucks' logo and iconography as long as it was in parody, birthing a coffee shop that lampoons and sells Starbucks products legally simply by labeling them dumb. Dumb Starbucks made headlines and was widely discussed by news outlets and media, again before anyone knew that it was all a massively elaborate prank. Nathan goes to insane lengths to commit to his character, whether it's fabricating a generous celebrity tip to drum up publicity or waging a monopoly war on Uber. It's his earnestness that disarms the people around him. A huge factor that would lead one to believe there's no way there's a lick of reality to Nathan For You is the notion that no one would take the idea of being the world's first ghost realtor seriously. That's the power of commitment. As long as a client passes the screening which proves they've never heard of Nathan or his show, Nathan's talent for getting people to sign on to his plans is remarkable, and it's all rooted in how honestly he goes about it. It may appear absurd how far Nathan is willing to take what's ultimately a practical joke, but because he actually goes to such lengths to prove his commitment, it's hard not to take his word for it when he suggests a costume containing a series of tubes that will serve chili to hockey rink goers. Bear in mind, this is a man who is so desperate to follow up on his plans after employing a policy to a hot dog stand that allowed customers to cut in line if they meet certain conditions of being in a hurry. Nathan, upon discovery that someone lied about a doctor's appointment, lured the customer onto a boat with hopes of confronting him on his dishonesty. The power of Nathan's commitment is such that he forces others to lower their guard. When dropping by a legal advisor with his idea for Dumb Starbucks, he coaxed the seasoned professional lawyer to sign a media release without reading it carefully, unknowingly also signing over his own legal responsibility should Dumb Starbucks land Nathan in hot water. If Nathan smirked, winked, or gave an inch in his intentions to pull the wool over his clients, someone may catch on. But his earnestness and utter commitment to his mentality and mindset means no one assumes any ill will or trickery from Nathan, and that is his bread and butter. Nathan's facade aside, marketing as a whole has grown so absurd in the age of meta-humor and longer-term marketing campaigns that most of Nathan's ideas aren't so wildly unusual. In the past few years, we saw IHOP change its specialty to burgers as opposed to pancakes for no discernible reason. Match.com sell its service by shipping a depiction of Satan with a sexy woman embodiment of the year 2020, and the death of Mr. Peanut. With all of that in mind, is advertising a taxi cab that will serve pregnant women for free, or a maid service that will deploy 40 maids to clean your house in less than 10 minutes, all that bizarre? Frankly, a lot of these ideas sound like they're just crazy enough to work on paper, and that is the thin line that the dubious reality of Nathan For You comfortably sits on. And it's with this core central dichotomy that makes Nathan For You so unforgettable, playing on every media we enjoy with any potential to touch this divide, be it theater, viral videos, or film. And rather than flirt with that line, it dances on it like a tightrope. A favorite piece of film trivia tends to be how Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained didn't mean to break the glass that made him bleed out in his famous performance, and he committed beyond anyone's expectation, creating this memorably manic monologue. Or on a similar note, Heath Ledger as the Joker beating the remote that would detonate the hospital behind him. Not because it was scripted, but because the effects did indeed delay, so he improvised on the spot. Nathan For You is a series about creating these moments one after another, about creating a tense if not unbelievable atmosphere, and playing off of every counteraction or yes and Nathan receives in response. This is the very same magic that makes live theater such a delight. There's always a layer to wonder if that broken prop or bizarre fumble was in the original script, or a directorial choice, or something that happened on total accident on that particular night. And that same curiosity exercises with Nathan For You. Did he plan to blackmail his private eye client when he felt viciously insulted by him? Was the plan he always had in his pocket to engage in an insanely awkward conversation with another man in his created man zone of a department store? Did he think through the implication of hiring tough positional daddies to act as muscle given on a dating app to help women feel safe of their exploits? Despite his ideas being ultimately harmless, there's a sense that Nathan's hijinks put him and others on thin ice, yet he always keeps his footing while never breaking his character. And then there's the thread in that we willfully believe these things were accidents and whatnot, but who's to say it wasn't scripted? I sometimes discuss comedians like Chris Fleming and John Mulaney with friends of mine, and we often share the sentiment that stories as truly bizarre as Detective J.J. Bittenbinder or Sick Jan the H&R Block Lady are so insanely specific that no one could have just come up with them and written them. And yet perhaps that's the true mark of an exceptional comedian, to stretch the truth to make the everyday oddities sound utterly surreal. Or maybe it's all an utter fabrication. Did Nathan truly not script that the child feeding him responses over earpiece in a job interview would rather hear about skateboarding than legal paperwork? Or does he have such a thorough understanding of what's so funny because it's realistic? Again, before I did indeed realize the show isn't supposed to be scripted, I thought this was the case. The same is often asked of short-form candid internet comedy. How about this classic?
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Sure, it's hilarious if this stranger was just caught talking on her phone about some scandalous roommate, but also would have been easily set up. But also, who would ever think of this little exchange and assumed it would have been viral? Just the same could be said for all of the borderline insanity Nathan has brought to our screens. Was it all a crapshoot? Is there hours of unaired plots and material that just didn't turn out funny? What allowed for such a tight and yet vacuous piece of comedy? It's nothing that I can't respect and yet question endlessly. As I reach the end of this script, I don't have much of an answer per se. I just think it's rather neat that a show was able to inspire this much bewilderment and questioning, not just the reality of the show, but of media where to believe is reality as a whole. And all of this from a show with a brand of humor to the effect of a man selling products literally labeled dumb pastries. I feel like that says it all.
There were protesters there too.
Protesting what?
I don't know.